Okay, guys, so thanks for joining. And if your dishwasher isn't washing just as good as it used to, this is going to be a great video for you. Maybe it's working and it's not, but it's not cleaning the dishes properly. I think you'll be interested in this one. All right, so the first thing you want to do is kind of check the easy things, right? So down in the bottom here, there's the big filter under this plate that you can get to with a couple of screws. Um, there is a whole kind of an area that you might have some stuff stuck down in there. So it's probably worth taking this little filter off, check that, make sure it's not clogged, and then go down a little deeper and just see if there might be some ick down in the bottom, right? So that's, again, that's this plate that kind of circles around here. All right, so the second thing you can check is the tubes that run up into these cleaning areas, right? So this one is for the top drawer. Check for any clogs there. Those tubes are actually pretty easy to get out of the system. Once you take this crossbar, cleaner bar, whatever they call it, off by simply rotating that sprocket there, to the right, that'll pop right off. It's real easy to then rotate the little cup thing down below it to the right, and these tubes will then pop right out. There are some clips here and here that hold that tube assembly in, so it's real easy to get to. So just check there, see if there's any clogs of paper or anything like that. That's kind of the easiest thing to do first. So moving on, that wasn't the problem with mine. The problem I had really was that paper had gotten stuck in the filter assembly of the pump, and I'm going to show you what that looks like here in a second. All right, so the next step is to pull this unit out. Really, it's a very light unit. It's not heavy at all, so you don't have to be strong or particularly worried about, pulling this unit out. There are two screws right here and right here, typically, that will be holding the machine in. You can see on the underside of my counter there where those screws are. So if your installer did a good job, he'll have put in lots of extra tubing and electrical supply cable, so that you can pull that whole thing out real easy. I was able to in my case. So one other note, make sure you turn the electricity off when you're doing this. There's not a whole lot of danger there, but depending on how it was installed, you just never know, right? So just be careful and take those precautions. Turn the water off as well. That way you don't have to disconnect from the front that water hose. Okay, so to pull the recirculating pump out, which is really the offender here, it's pretty easy. So there's really three tubes once you're under the unit that you have to look at. It's this tube here that connects to this rubber tube. Then you've got a rubber flange here that connects to that part of the pump. And then you've got the waste tube that connects to the waste pump right there. So pretty easy stuff. One thing you're going to have to be aware of is that you will need a new clamp when you do this. So I tried to reuse the old one. It's one of those cheap bendable ones. They work great, but they're kind of hard to use afterwards. Anyways, this is a little video on just how that pump fits up in there. You'll see the three, the number one connection, number two connection there, the main connection, and then the third connection down below. So that's really it for the connections to get that motor out. All right, so moving along. Right here is a close-up of that rubber seal that seals around that part of the motor. So that's actually a low pressure area. So even though you just pull that pump out and press it back in when you're reassembling it, it's got plenty enough sealing power to do the job. So right here you can see that clamp I was talking about is pretty much destroyed, and I didn't have a tool to properly get it back in place, so I replaced it with another clamp. Okay, so let's dig into this little pump. Let's find the offending filter, if you will. So again, I said it was the filter. That filter is underneath this big dome here on the pump. To get to the filter, you just pull this dome off. There's 3 screws. You can kind of see them over here. 1, 2, and 3. You don't have to worry about forgetting where that goes together. I'll show you later on how that goes together and how you can't screw it up. So anyways, that's how you get into the filter section. This is the actual filter right here. So let's take a look, and this is the close-up. Now you can see in this filter, in this picture, the filter is completely clogged up with paper. I know it's paper because my kids put some jars in the machine that had a bunch of paper on it, and right after that we started having this problem. So this filter rotates, and as it rotates, it's supposed to be wiped clean by this blade. There's 2 blades that wipe it clean. You can see here though that this paper is such a mushy mess that it just kind of pressed itself into the holes of the filter itself. To get this filter apart, you're going to need to take this little guy off the top. Don't lose it, you'll need it. And then you can see here how it comes apart in basically 4 sections. This section right here, the blade section, is still inside the housing. But you can see down in the bottom here where the paper clogged up. That filter is a complete clogged up mess. And then there's some wipers on the inside of it as well that scrape away the crud. All right, so moving right along, here's a close-up of that filter. It doesn't necessarily look like it's all that badly clogged, but I can assure you it is clogged. You can see the inside here. It's very, very messy, and that was hard to get out. All right, so to clean this thing, I had to take a brush and just basically scrub the outside of the filter. Once I did that, all this mush inside of the filter really cleaned up, and it was great. So didn't have any problems there. All right, moving along. This is what the filter looks like, completely apart and ready to put back together. You simply you can see here, here's the internal wiper, here's the filter itself all cleaned up, here's the external wiper right here that goes inside of this cup, and you can't put it in wrong. You'll see what I mean when you're in there, but it's pretty simple really to pull apart and put back together. Here's a little video on how that's supposed to actually rotate and wipe away the garbage. Okay, so same thing on the inside. These wipers are supposed to squeegee away the gunk, but the paper is nasty enough that it just clogs that whole system up. All right, so to put this back together, you do need to put that C-clip right back on the top. I don't have it on in this picture, but you have to have that on. This little tab fits down in this slot. All right, so you can't put it on wrong. There's only 1 tab and only 1 slot to put it into. So just make sure you align that up, and you'll be good to go. All right, now to put the big plenum back on. Again, it's got a tab right here that fits in to the casing. That's the only place it will work. So you can put back those 3 metal screws that hold the whole thing in place. Or you can see 2 of them right there. All right, so you can see there that I've got the C washer back on there, and it is ready to be reinstalled back into the machine at this point. All right, so I'll just run this video real quick, and you can see that it just goes right back in where it came from. So no big secrets there. All right, so something to make sure you do correctly. When you take the motor out, you'll see a grommet, a flat grommet that this tab fits into. This little white nub fits up against this ring to kind of hold the motor in place, but yet it keeps it quiet while it's running. Again, this is kind of a close-up look of that grommet that you just press the pump into. There's no clamp on it. It's a low pressure fitting, so it works just fine. All right, moving along. All right, so at this point, reassemble it. Now I checked for leaks before I put it all back together and installed it back into the cabinet. When you put the machine on its face, it dribbles water down into the door area. So when you stand it back up, water comes out. You'll want a towel that you see that I've got there, and definitely use that towel. Of course, when you're ready to put it back in, I ran it through a couple of cycles just to make sure I didn't have any leaks down below, and everything turned out great. So go ahead and use those screws on the tabs again to fasten it to the top of the countertop here and here, and you'll be ready to go. Now, mine got pretty dirty after I after I did this, because I had some water kind of slosh around and I made a bit of a mess. And anyways, I had to clean that up. So hopefully you'll do a cleaner job than mine. So that's pretty much it. So the question I had is, is this a good filter design? I kind of think it is. I thought everything was pretty well made on this box, on this dishwasher, I should say. While I take away points for making a filter that isn't necessarily consumer friendly, at least they had a filter on it so you wouldn't kill the motor. So I think they got a little too fancy on this one and put a filter that's not accessible, and kind of, it's kind of one of those things where maybe the holes are just a little too small or something like that, because paper really just jams that whole thing up and makes a mess. So that's pretty much it, guys. Hope this helps, and we'll catch you on the next video.